I recognized my wife's white Lexus in the hotel parking lot, the same way you recognize a knife sliding between your ribs, slowly at first, then all at once. The personalized plate read VNS-LAW, and it gleamed under the Wednesday afternoon sun like an accusation. I was supposed to be in a deposition for another 3 hours, but opposing counsel's star witness had crumbled faster than expected, and I'd taken a shortcut through Buckhead on my way back to the office. The Whitley Hotel. Upscale. Discreet. The kind of place where rooms rented by the hour and nobody asked questions. I pulled my car into a spot across the street, behind a delivery truck that gave me a clear sightline to the entrance. My hands found the steering wheel and gripped it until my knuckles went white. There had to be an explanation. Vanessa had stopped working at the firm 3 years ago, but maybe she was meeting a friend. Maybe she was planning a surprise for my birthday next month. I sat there for 47 minutes. I know because I watched every single one tick by on the dashboard clock. When she finally emerged, she was glowing. There's no other word for it. She had that particular look, the one I used to see after we'd been intimate, back when that still happened regularly. Her fingers moved through her hair, adjusting it. Her lips were slightly swollen. She walked with that loose, satisfied gait that told me everything I needed to know and nothing I wanted to hear. She didn't see me. She got into her Lexus and drove away, and I sat there for another 20 minutes, not moving, barely breathing. My phone buzzed. A text from Malcolm. "Hey partner, missed you at the meeting. Everything okay?" I stared at the message until the screen went dark. Dinner that night was roast chicken with rosemary potatoes, Vanessa's specialty. Olivia chattered about her day at school, something about a boy named Tommy who had tried to kiss her on the playground and how she'd pushed him into the sandbox. "Good girl," I said, and meant it. "Drew, are you listening?" Vanessa smiled at me across the table. Her makeup was fresh, reapplied since I'd seen her at the hotel. I asked how the deposition went. "Long," I said. "Grueling. You know how these things are." "Poor baby." She reached over and squeezed my hand. "What about you, V? How was your day?" "Oh, nothing special. Lunch with the girls, ran some errands." She didn't miss a beat. Not a flicker of guilt crossed her face. I watched her eat, this woman I'd shared a bed with for 8 years, and I realized I was looking at a stranger. Whoever Vanessa Carter had been when I'd married her, she'd been performing for me the entire time. After dinner, I helped Olivia with her math homework. She was struggling with subtraction, getting frustrated when the numbers didn't cooperate. "It's okay, sweetheart," I told her. "Let's try again. What's 12 minus 7? "I don't know, Daddy." Her lower lip trembled. "Hey!" I tilted her chin up. "It's just numbers. They can't hurt you. Take your time." She worked through it slowly, using her fingers, and when she finally got the right answer, her whole face lit up. 5! It's 5! That's my girl." I pulled her into a hug that lasted longer than it should have. She smelled like strawberry shampoo and innocence. Later, I tucked her into bed and read her favorite story. The one about the princess who saved herself instead of waiting for a prince. When I kissed her forehead goodnight, she grabbed my hand. "Daddy, your eyes are sad." The observation hit me like a punch to the chest. "I'm not sad, sweetheart. Just tired." "Okay." She didn't sound convinced. "I love you, Daddy." "I love you too. More than anything in this world." I meant that too. That night, Vanessa reached for me under the covers. Her hand slid across my stomach, moving lower with practiced ease. "Not tonight," I said. "I'm exhausted." She made a small sound of disappointment but didn't push. Within minutes, her breathing had evened out into sleep. I lay awake until 3 in the morning, staring at the ceiling, running through every possible explanation that didn't involve my wife sleeping with another man. By the time the first gray light of dawn crept through the curtains, I'd discarded them all. The next morning, I canceled my meetings and drove back to the Whitley. I sat in the parking lot for an hour, watching the valets shuttle cars back and forth, trying to figure out my next move. A litigator lives and dies by information. You never walk into a courtroom without knowing more than your opponent. You never ask a question you don't already know the answer to. And you never, ever show your hand before you're ready to play it. So I waited, watched, planned. The valet was young, maybe 22, with the hungry look of someone working his way through college. I found him on his smoke break behind the building, leaning against a dumpster and scrolling through his phone. "Got a minute?" I asked. He looked up, immediately wary. "Sir, I'm on break. This won't take long." I pulled out my wallet. White Lexus, personalized plate, VNS-LAW. "How often does she come here?" His eyes went flat and careful. I'd seen that look 1,000 times in deposition rooms, the look of someone calculating how much trouble they might be in. "Sir, I can't discuss our guests." I pressed $200 into his palm. He looked at the bills, then back at me, then at the bills again. "Every Wednesday," he said quietly. "Like clockwork. About 3 months now, maybe a little longer." "She meet anyone?" He hesitated. I could see the calculation happening behind his eyes. Loyalty versus money. Discretion versus opportunity. I added another 100. "Tall guy, nice car, black Mercedes, S-Class. Real nice suits, the kind you don't get off the rack." He pocketed the money with practiced ease. "They arrive within a few minutes of each other. Go up together. Come down about 2 hours later, sometimes 3. She always leaves first." "Can you describe him, the man?" "Good looking, I guess. Dark hair, keeps it slicked back, laughs a lot, tips well." He shrugged. "Looks like money." He'd just described Malcolm perfectly. "Thank you," I said. "You've been very helpful." "Hey, man." He caught my arm as I turned to leave. "Whatever's going on, I hope it works out for you." I didn't answer. I walked back to my car on legs that felt like they belonged to someone else. 3 months. Every Wednesday. While I sat in partners' meetings discussing case strategy and billing rates, my wife was in a hotel room with my best friend. I thought about the firm's Wednesday meeting, the one I never missed, the one Malcolm always seemed to have client conflicts with. All those times he'd breezed in late, apologizing about traffic or difficult clients. All those times he'd clapped me on the shoulder and asked how Vanessa was doing. Malcolm Whitfield, my best friend for 15 years, my business partner, the godfather of my daughter. The thought was so absurd I almost laughed. Except nothing about this was funny. That night, I waited until Vanessa's breathing settled into the deep rhythm of sleep before slipping out of bed. The clock on my nightstand read 1:47 a.m. I moved through the dark house like a ghost, avoiding the floorboards that creaked, the corner of the hallway table that always caught my hip. Her laptop sat on the kitchen counter where she always left it. An expensive MacBook Pro I'd bought her for Christmas 2 years ago. The password was the same one she'd used for 8 years. Olivia's birthday plus our anniversary. She'd never felt the need to change it. Why would she? She trusted me completely. And I had trusted her. I opened her email and started searching. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat, in my fingertips, in the space behind my eyes. The obvious terms, Whitley, hotel, Wednesday, returned nothing. She was smarter than that. I tried Malcolm and got firm-related correspondence, nothing suspicious. Then I tried M and found something that made my blood run cold. A folder. Labeled innocuously, Book Club. Inside were hundreds of emails, neatly archived. The first one was dated 9 years ago, before we were married, before we'd even met. "Last night was incredible, but we need to be careful. Drew's a good guy. He doesn't deserve to be hurt. At least not yet. M. I read for 2 hours. My hands shook so badly that I had to set the laptop down twice just to steady myself. My coffee grew cold beside me, untouched. The emails painted a picture I couldn't unsee, a portrait of my marriage as a carefully constructed lie. Malcolm had introduced Vanessa to me deliberately. "He's perfect for you," he'd written. "Stable, loyal, will work himself to death building a career. He'll never suspect a thing. I get my freedom from family expectations, you get your financial security, and we get each other. Best of all worlds." There were emails discussing me like I was a character in a play they were writing together. My habits, my preferences, my blind spots. "Drew trusts completely," Vanessa had written. "It's his weakness. Once you're in forever. He doesn't know how to doubt the people he loves." I found an email from our wedding day. From my wife to my best friend, sent while she was wearing white and I was waiting at the altar. I almost laughed during the vows. "You were standing right there in your groomsman's suit, looking at me like you owned me. Does that make us terrible people?" Malcolm's reply, "It makes us honest about what we want, and what we want is to have it all. See you tonight." They'd been together that night. Our wedding night. While I slept beside my new bride, believing I was the luckiest man alive. When Vanessa had gotten pregnant with Olivia, they'd agreed to cool it for a while. "Give it a year after the baby," Malcolm had written. "We don't want to risk anything while she's vulnerable. Your husband is besotted with the idea of being a father." Her response still burned behind my eyes. "He's so excited to be a father. It's almost sweet. Like watching a puppy learn a new trick." Almost sweet, like I was a performing animal in their private circus. And then there was the investment. 3 years ago, Malcolm had convinced me to put $80,000 into a real estate fund he was setting up. Safe returns, minimal risk, a chance to diversify outside the firm. I'd trusted him without question. Why wouldn't I trust my best friend and business partner? The money had bought them an apartment off Peachtree Street, Unit 1204. I'd funded their love nest with my own savings, and they joked about it in emails I was never supposed to see. "The apartment is perfect," Vanessa had written. "And the best part? Drew thinks he's making 12% returns. Poor lamb. He's going to be so confused when tax season comes and there's no $1,099. "Don't worry," Malcolm had replied. "I'll handle the paperwork. I always do." I closed the laptop and sat in the dark kitchen for a long time. The clock ticked. The refrigerator hummed. Somewhere outside, a dog barked once and fell silent. When I finally moved, it was to pour myself 3 fingers of bourbon, which I drank without tasting. Then I poured another. My entire marriage was a lie. Not just an affair, a conspiracy. An architectural betrayal constructed over nearly a decade, with me as the unwitting foundation. Every anniversary, every Christmas, every birthday party and family vacation and quiet evening at home. All of it built on a foundation of contempt and deception. I thought about Olivia sleeping upstairs, my beautiful daughter, and the question that had been gnawing at the edges of my mind finally surfaced fully. Was she even mine? The emails mentioned cooling off during the pregnancy, but they'd been together before Vanessa got pregnant. The timeline left room for doubt. Room for the worst possibility I could imagine. I sat with that thought until the first gray light of dawn crept through the curtains. Then I showered, dressed, and went to work. Because that's what you do when your world is collapsing. You keep moving. You keep functioning. You wait until you're ready to strike. The next morning, I walked into the office at exactly 8 o'clock, same as always. My assistant commented that I looked tired. "Rough night," I said. "Clear my afternoon." Malcolm intercepted me at the coffee machine. "Drew, you look like death warmed over. Everything okay?" I studied his face, the easy smile, the perfectly styled hair. The designer suit that probably cost more than most people's mortgage payments. Malcolm Whitfield, son of Judge Raymond Whitfield, born into money and connections, never had to work for anything in his life. Couldn't sleep, I said. One of those nights. Let me buy you lunch, he offered. That new place on Peachtree. My treat. The audacity of it nearly made me lose control. Peachtree Street. Where the apartment was. The one I'd paid for. Can't. Depositions. He clapped my shoulder with the casual intimacy of 15 years of friendship. Don't work yourself to death, partner. Take care of yourself. I watched him walk away, and I thought about how this man had stood beside me at my wedding, held my newborn daughter, eaten at my table every Thanksgiving, and laughed about it all. But I didn't confront him. I'm a litigator. I know you never reveal your hand until you've seen all the cards. The private investigator I hired came recommended through channels that had nothing to do with Atlanta's legal community. I reached out to a law school buddy who'd moved to Chicago, someone who knew people who knew people. The kind of referral that doesn't leave a paper trail. Nathan Cross, former FBI Financial Crimes Unit, now private sector. We met at a diner in Decatur, far enough from Buckhead that I wouldn't run into anyone I knew. He was waiting in a back booth when I arrived, a compact man in his 50s with the alert eyes of someone who'd spent decades reading people. You're Lawson, he said. Not a question. That's right. Sit down. You want coffee? I slid into the booth across from him. No, I want information. He smiled slightly. Straight to business. I respect that. He pulled out a small notebook. Tell me what you need. 2 subjects, I told him. Full surveillance, complete discretion. No paper trail back to me under any circumstances. That'll cost you. I'm aware. I slid an envelope across the table. $15,000 in cash, withdrawn in small amounts over several days from different branches. He thumbed through the bills without counting them, a man who could estimate a stack's worth by feel. Who are we watching? My wife and my business partner. His expression didn't change. In his line of work, I imagined this wasn't exactly novel territory. I'll need details, names, addresses, routines. The more you give me, the faster I work. I gave him everything. The hotel, the apartment address I'd found in the emails, Malcolm's schedule, Vanessa's weekly routines. He listened without taking notes, which told me he either had an exceptional memory or this wasn't his first domestic surveillance job. Probably both. How long have you suspected? He asked when I'd finished. I caught them 3 days ago, but according to the evidence I found, it's been going on for 9 years. He let out a low whistle. That's some serious long-game deception. I want to know everything, where they go, when they meet, who else might be involved, and I need a forensic accountant, someone who can trace money through shell companies without leaving fingerprints. I know a guy, best in the Southeast for that kind of work. He's expensive, but he's clean. Nathan finished his coffee. What's your end goal here, Mr. Lawson? Divorce? Prosecution? Simple peace of mind? I thought about the question. It was the same one I'd been asking myself for 3 sleepless nights. I want the truth, I said finally. All of it. And then I want to make sure they never hurt anyone the way they've hurt me. Nathan nodded slowly. That's not revenge you're describing. That's justice. Is there a difference? Sometimes. He stood up and extended his hand. You'll have preliminary reports in a week. We'll meet here, same time. Don't contact me directly unless it's an emergency. I shook his hand. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. He pulled on his jacket. The truth has a way of being uglier than we expect. You sure you're ready for it? I've been living a lie for 9 years. Whatever the truth is, it can't be worse than that. He gave me a look that suggested he wasn't entirely convinced. then walked out of the diner without looking back. A week later, Nathan Cross confirmed what I already suspected and revealed what I hadn't known. The apartment existed. 1847 Peachtree Road, Unit 1204. Registered to an LLC called Whitfield Holdings. My $80,000 had traveled through 3 shell companies before landing there. Malcolm had been planning this for years, but that wasn't the worst of it. "Your partner's been skimming," Nathan said, sliding a folder across the table. "Client retainer funds mostly. Small amounts spread across time. Hard to notice unless you're looking." "How much?" "Approximately $340,000. I sat back in my chair. Embezzlement. This wasn't just adultery anymore. This was a felony. This was disbarment and prison time, and my name was on the firm. If this came out the wrong way, I'd go down too. "There's more," Nathan continued. "I pulled some court records, looked at cases your partner handled that went before his father's bench. The patterns are interesting." Define interesting. Favorable rulings, convenient timing, procedural advantages that swung key cases. He paused. "I'm not saying it's corruption, but if I were a betting man..." Judge Raymond Whitfield. 67 years old, Georgia Court of Appeals, old-school power broker. He'd protected Malcolm from consequences his entire life. Why would this be any different? I took the folder. "Keep digging. I want everything." The Bar Association event fell on a Thursday night, 2 weeks after I'd started my investigation. The Ritz-Carlton ballroom was packed with Atlanta's legal elite. Judges, senior partners, politicians who needed lawyers on speed dial. I'd almost skipped it, but something told me I needed to be seen. To maintain appearances. Judge Whitfield found me near the bar, holding a bourbon I hadn't touched. "Andrew." He clasped my hand with the firm grip of a man who'd spent his life convincing others of his authority. "How's that beautiful wife of yours?" "Fine, Your Honor. Malcolm speaks highly of her." His eyes crinkled with something that might have been amusement. "Says she's been a wonderful addition to your family." The way he said it. The slight smile playing at the corners of his mouth. He knew. The old man had always known. This wasn't just Malcolm's secret. It was a family project. "I'll pass along your regards," I said. "You do that." He patted my shoulder and moved on to his next conversation, leaving me with the distinct impression that I'd just been put in my place. I finished my bourbon and ordered another. Vanessa found me in the kitchen on a Saturday morning, 3 weeks into my investigation. Olivia was at a birthday party, and we had the house to ourselves, a rare occurrence that I'd usually have welcomed. "Drew, I have news." She was smiling, practically glowing. "I'm pregnant." The words hit me like a physical blow. I forced my face into something resembling happiness. "That's wonderful. I know we weren't planning it, but..." She took my hands in hers. "Aren't you happy?" "Of course. Just surprised." Later, after she'd gone to run errands, or whatever she was actually doing, I sat in my home office and did the math. We'd barely been intimate in months, but I remembered one night, about 6 weeks ago, when she'd initiated and I'd been too tired to question it. Maybe the baby was mine. Maybe it wasn't. The thought that had been haunting me for weeks finally surfaced fully. Was Olivia even mine? I'd pushed it away every time it appeared, but now I couldn't ignore it any longer. The emails had mentioned cooling off during Vanessa's first pregnancy. They'd been together before she got pregnant. The timeline left room for doubt. I looked at my daughter's photo on my desk. She had my mother's smile. I was certain of that. My nose. My stubborn chin. But doubt is a poison, and it was spreading through my bloodstream with every passing hour. The next day, I collected DNA samples. A hair from Olivia's brush. A cheek swab from myself when no one was looking. I sent them to a private lab in another state, paid cash, and settled in to wait. 5 to 7 days, they said. It was the longest week of my life. Patricia Holloway had been my law school classmate, a brief girlfriend before I'd met Vanessa, and was now a senior partner at a rival firm. We hadn't spoken in years, but when I called her office and asked for a meeting, she agreed without hesitation. We met at a wine bar in Virginia Highland, far from the downtown legal crowd. She looked exactly as I remembered, sharp, ruthless, with the kind of beauty that made opposing counsel underestimate her exactly once. Drew Lawson. She swirled her Malbec, studying me over the rim. You look like you've been through a war. I'm about to start one. I told her everything. The affair, the timeline, the financial fraud, the judge's involvement, the pregnancy. When I finished, she let out a low whistle. You're not just divorcing your wife, you're taking down an entire family empire. They built their empire on my back, on my reputation, on my money. What do you want? I'd thought about this for weeks. The answer came without hesitation. Everything, the firm, my daughter, and them, publicly destroyed. That's not revenge, she said. That's war. Then help me win it. She was quiet for a long moment, turning her glass in her fingers. Why me? We haven't spoken in years. Because you're the only person in this city who has nothing to gain from lying to me. No connections to the Whitfields, no relationships with Malcolm, no stake in my marriage. You're clean. And what do I get out of this? A partnership stake in a firm that's about to lose its most famous name. I'll need someone I trust to help rebuild. Patricia smiled. It was the smile of a predator who just spotted wounded prey. Tell me more. The paternity results arrived on a Tuesday morning. I stared at the email notification for an hour before I could bring myself to open it. Results. Subject A and Subject B share a parent-child relationship with 99.98% probability. Olivia was mine. I sat at my desk and wept. For the first time since this whole nightmare began, I allowed myself to break. My daughter, my brilliant, beautiful daughter, was biologically mine. Whatever else Vanessa and Malcolm had taken from me, they hadn't taken that. I pulled myself together after 10 minutes. There was work to do, and now nothing was holding me back. The evidence portfolio took another week to assemble. Email archives backed up with timestamps. Financial forensics showing the money trail and the embezzlement. PI surveillance with photos and hotel records. Court records documenting suspicious patterns. Sworn affidavits from the hotel valet. I met with Patricia to review our strategy. The prenup has an infidelity clause, I explained. If proven, Vanessa forfeits all claims to marital assets. I sense a but coming. The prenup was drafted by the firm. Malcolm reviewed it. I pulled up the relevant clause. He inserted a requirement that infidelity must be ongoing and continuous for 12 months preceding discovery. Technically, the affair paused during Vanessa's pregnancy with Olivia. So he tried to protect her. But he made a mistake. I showed her the emails. The relationship never stopped, only the physical component. The planning, the conspiracy, the emotional affair, all continuous. I can argue the clause was never satisfied. Patricia nodded slowly. It's aggressive. A judge might not buy it. A judge will buy it when they see the rest. The embezzlement, the setup, the fact that my own partner helped draft a prenup designed to protect his mistress. I leaned back. No judge in Georgia will have sympathy for Malcolm Whitfield after this. What about the partnership agreement? Moral turpitude clause. Either partner can be expelled for conduct that brings the firm into disrepute. Malcolm's embezzlement qualifies. And the judge? His father? I smiled. It was not a nice smile. I'm saving him for last. The meetings with the compromised clients were delicate operations. Nathan had found files in Malcolm's office, evidence of wrongdoing that was supposed to be attorney-client privileged. A real estate developer bribing city officials, a tech CEO committing securities fraud, a state senator with campaign finance problems. Malcolm had been keeping insurance. Dead man switches designed to bring everyone down with him if he ever went down himself. I met with each client personally, in private, with no records. Your files aren't safe, I told the real estate developer, a man named Thornton who'd built half the condos in Midtown. Someone at the firm has been keeping insurance. I'm making sure that ends. His face went gray. What do you want? Your support in the coming weeks, discretion now, statements later, if needed. And the files? Secured. By me personally. He nodded slowly. You're different from your partner, Lawson. I always thought so. I'm exactly what I've always been. Malcolm's the one who changed. I had the same conversation, with variations, 3 more times. By the end of the week, I had an army of powerful men who owed me their secrets and their loyalty. The day I confronted Vanessa started like any other. Olivia left for school at 7:30, chattering about a science project she was working on. Something about volcanoes and baking soda. I hugged her tight at the door and watched her climb into her grandmother's car for the weekly morning drive to school. When I came back inside, Vanessa was in the kitchen, refilling her coffee. You're not going to the office today? Working from home, I said. We need to talk. Something flickered across her face, the briefest shadow of unease, but she covered it smoothly. She'd had years of practice, after all. Sure, honey, what's up? We sat across from each other at the kitchen table, the same table where we'd shared thousands of meals, where Olivia had taken her first bites of solid food, where we'd planned birthday parties and holiday gatherings. The coffee between us grew cold. Vanessa scrolled through her phone, oblivious to what was coming. I know about Malcolm, I said. Her head snapped up. The phone clattered to the table. What? 9 years, the Whitley Hotel. The apartment on Peachtree that I paid for without knowing it. I kept my voice level, clinical. The emails where you discussed me like I was a piece of furniture you were both rearranging. The color drained from her face so fast I thought she might pass out. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. For a long moment, no words came out. Drew! Her voice cracked like ice giving way. Drew, please, I can explain. No, I cut her off. The same tone I used in depositions when a hostile witness tried to spin a narrative. You're going to listen. I've spent 2 months gathering evidence while you thought everything was normal. I know everything. The setup, the wedding day, the cooling off during the pregnancy, the $80,000, all of it. 2 months? She was crying now, tears streaming down cheeks that had lost all their color. You've known for 2 months and you didn't... I didn't say anything because I needed to make sure, because I needed to have every piece of the puzzle before I made my move. I pushed a folder across the table. This is the evidence I've compiled. Emails, financial records, surveillance photos, hotel records with timestamps, sworn statements. She stared at the folder like it was a coiled snake. Her hands trembled as she opened it and began to read. I watched her face as recognition dawned, the scope of what I knew, the thoroughness of my preparation. Oh God. Her voice was barely a whisper. Oh God, Drew. I'm not asking for an explanation, I continued. There isn't one that would matter. I'm telling you what's going to happen next. I laid out the terms. Divorce papers signed without contest. All marital assets forfeited per the prenup, the one Malcolm had helped draft, thinking he'd protected her with that clever little clause about continuous infidelity. A modest settlement for Olivia's stability, but nothing more. Joint custody with me as primary. And the hardest one, no contact between Olivia and Malcolm. Ever. You can't do this, she whispered. I have rights. You have what I decide to give you. I leaned forward. If you fight me, every piece of this goes public. Your friends, your family, your mother in that little town you came from. Everyone will know exactly what you've been doing for the past 9 years, including that you conspired to trap a man into a fake marriage so you could have financial security while sleeping with his best friend. That's not... She was sobbing now, mascara running down her face. That's not what happened. It wasn't like that at the beginning. I did care about you, Drew. I do care about you. You cared about what I could provide. Stability, respectability, a nice house in Druid Hills and a husband who worked 60 hours a week and never asked questions. I stood up. That's not caring. That's using. The baby, she said suddenly. Drew, the baby. I know about the pregnancy. I'll want a paternity test. If it's mine, I'll honor my responsibilities. If it's his... I shrugged. You're on your own. Her face crumpled. I don't know whose it is. I know. I looked at her. Really looked at her. This woman I'd loved for 8 years, built a life with, trusted with everything I had. That's the saddest part, isn't it? That you don't even know. I walked toward the door. Drew. Her voice stopped me. Did you ever love me? Really love me? I turned back. The question deserved an honest answer. Yes, I said. I loved the woman I thought you were. I would have done anything for her. Died for her. I paused. The problem is that woman never existed. You made her up. I left her crying at the kitchen table and drove to the office to end another relationship. Malcolm was in the middle of a client call when I walked into his office that afternoon. His corner suite, with its view of the Atlanta skyline and its tasteful art on the walls, purchased with money he'd stolen from the clients he was supposed to protect. I closed the door behind me, locked it, waited. He glanced up, eyebrows raised, finger held up in the universal gesture for 1 minute. Absolutely, we'll have the briefs filed by Friday. You have my word. He laughed at something the caller said. Always a pleasure. My best to your wife. He hung up and swiveled to face me. Drew? Everything okay? You look like someone ran over your dog. I laid the evidence on his desk without saying a word. The surveillance photos first. Malcolm and Vanessa entering the hotel. Malcolm and Vanessa leaving the apartment. Malcolm and Vanessa sharing a kiss in a parking garage. Then the emails. Then the financial records showing the embezzled client funds. I watched his face as he processed what he was seeing. Confusion first, then recognition, then a kind of cold calculation as he assessed his options. And finally, underneath it all, fear. Drew, don't. I sat down in the chair across from his desk, the chair where clients usually sat, looking at him with trust and hope. I've spent nearly 2 decades thinking you were my friend, my brother. Don't waste my last few minutes of that delusion by pretending you don't know exactly what this is. He was quiet for a long moment, flipping through the evidence. His hands weren't shaking. Malcolm had always been cool under pressure, but I could see the tightness around his jaw, the slight pallor beneath his tennis court tan. Where did you get this? He asked finally. Does it matter? It matters for what comes next. He looked up at me. How long have you known? Long enough to make sure I have everything I need. He set down the folder and leaned back in his chair, adopting the pose I'd seen him use in 1,000 negotiations, relaxed, confident, in control. But I knew him too well. I could see the cracks. You think you're the victim here, Drew? Really? His voice had an edge to it now. You got the wife, the kid, the house in Druid Hills, The perfect little family. I got scraps, stolen moments in hotel rooms, pretending to be happy at your dinner table while the woman I loved served me mashed potatoes. The woman you loved. I let out a laugh that sounded foreign to my own ears. You don't love anyone but yourself, Malcolm. You never have. That's not true. It is true. If you'd loved Vanessa, you would have married her yourself. But you didn't, did you? Because she wasn't good enough for the Whitfield family tree. I leaned forward. She was good enough to spread her legs for, but not good enough to present at the country club. So you gave her to me, your reliable, hard-working, trustworthy best friend, and kept her for yourself on the side. Best of both worlds. He flinched. It was the first crack in his armor I'd seen. My father, he started. I know all about your father. I know about the 12 cases where his rulings magically favored your clients. I know about the money you've been skimming from client accounts. $340,000, give or take. I watched his face go gray. Did you really think you could steal from the people who trusted us and no one would ever notice? Those were loans, he said quickly. I was going to pay them back. Save it for the bar disciplinary hearing. I stood up. The Georgia State Bar will receive my complaint tomorrow morning. You'll be suspended pending investigation. Our major clients have already been notified, by me personally, and they've all chosen to stay with me. You talked to our clients? His composure finally broke. You went behind my back. Behind your back? I laughed again. That's rich, Malcolm. That's genuinely rich coming from you. If you do this, he was standing now too, hands flat on his desk. If you go through with this, I'll burn everything down. The firm, your reputation, everything. I have files on every major client we've ever represented. Evidence of their wrongdoing. If I go down, I'm taking everyone with me. Already handled. I walked toward the door. I warned them. I told them exactly what you have and exactly what I'm doing about it. Who do you think they trust now? The man who was stealing from them, or the man who warned them about it? I could see the realization hit him, the understanding that his dead man's switches had been disarmed, his leverage neutralized. You taught me something, Malcolm. I unlocked the door. You taught me that loyalty is for fools, that trust is a weapon people use against you. Thank you for the lesson. Drew, his voice cracked. Drew, we were friends. 15 years. We were never friends. I didn't turn around. I was just too blind to see it. I walked out of his office and didn't look back. Judge Raymond Whitfield summoned me to his Buckhead estate 3 days after I confronted Malcolm. The invitation came through his clerk, formal, polite, the kind of request that was really a command. You didn't say no to a sitting appellate judge, especially one who'd been on the bench for 3 decades. The house was old money incarnate, a Georgian colonial set back from the road behind iron gates and ancient oaks, the kind of property that had been in the family for generations. I parked my car behind a Mercedes and a Bentley and walked up the flagstone path to the front door. A housekeeper in a pressed uniform answered my knock. Mr. Lawson, the judge is expecting you. This way, please. I followed her through a foyer that was larger than my first apartment, past portraits of stern-faced ancestors in gilded frames, through hallways paneled in dark wood that had probably witnessed a century of backroom deals and genteel corruption. The judge received me in his study, a glass of whiskey already in hand. The room smelled of leather and old books, and the particular musk of power that had been accumulated over decades. Andrew. He didn't offer me a seat or a drink. Thank you for coming. It didn't feel optional, Your Honor. He smiled thinly. Sit down. We have things to discuss. I sat in a leather chair that had probably cost more than my first car. The judge settled into his own chair across from me, the massive mahogany desk between us like a barricade. You've made quite a mess, he said. My son is suspended. His practice is in ruins. His reputation, the reputation of this family, is being dragged through the mud. Your son embezzled $340,000 from client accounts. Your son conducted a 9-year affair with my wife. Your son used my money to fund that affair. I kept my voice level. Those aren't messes I made. Those are messes he made. The judge's eyes hardened. He was used to people deferring to him, wilting under his gaze. I wasn't going to be one of them. Malcolm made mistakes, he said. Boys do. That's what fathers are for, to protect them, guide them, help them learn from their errors. That doesn't justify destroying his career, his reputation, his entire future. With respect, Your Honor, Malcolm isn't a boy. He's a 39-year-old man who made calculated decisions over nearly a decade to deceive his business partner, steal from his clients, and sleep with his best friend's wife. I paused. Those aren't mistakes. Those are character. The judge set down his whiskey glass with more force than necessary. I've been on this bench for 30 years, Andrew. I have friends in every corner of this state. In the legislature, in the bar association, in firms that would kill for your client list. If you persist in this crusade, doors will close. Opportunities will vanish. Your career will wither on the vine. Is that a threat, Your Honor? It's a prediction, based on decades of experience watching men destroy themselves by pursuing vendettas they can't win. I reached into my briefcase and pulled out a folder. Speaking of predictions, I have documentation of 12 cases where your rulings suspiciously favored your son's clients. Procedural irregularities. Timing coincidences that defy statistical probability. Outcomes that made no legal sense but made perfect sense if someone was tilting the scales. I set the folder on his desk. I haven't included this in any complaint. Yet. His face went rigid. The comfortable arrogance I'd seen when I walked in had vanished, replaced by something colder and more calculating. You're threatening a sitting judge of the Georgia Court of Appeals? I'm informing you of facts. What you do with that information is your choice. I stood up. You can protect your son by burying me, or you can protect yourself by staying out of my way. I'll let you decide which is more important to you. We stared at each other across 30 years of accumulated power and 3 months of carefully gathered evidence. The room was very quiet. My son loved her, the judge said finally. Vanessa. He truly loved her. I know that doesn't excuse what he did, but no, I agreed. It doesn't. I walked to the door. His voice stopped me before I could open it. Andrew, you're making an enemy you can't afford. I turned back to look at him. This powerful old man in his powerful old house, surrounded by portraits of powerful dead ancestors. He'd spent his whole life accumulating influence and favors and leverage. He probably couldn't imagine a world where that wouldn't be enough. Your Honor, with all due respect, I've spent the last 9 years married to an enemy I didn't know I had. I think I'll survive you. I left the folder on his desk and walked out into the afternoon sunlight. The Georgia State Bar issued Malcolm's emergency suspension 3 weeks later. The news spread through Atlanta's legal community like wildfire. By the end of the day, my phone was ringing off the hook. Clients wanting reassurance, colleagues wanting gossip, reporters wanting quotes. I gave them nothing. Silence was more powerful than any statement I could make. Malcolm tried to rally support. He called in favors, reached out to old friends, even showed up at a bar association event trying to network. But the word was already out. The clients I'd warned had spread the story. Nobody wanted to be associated with a falling star. He came to my house a week after the suspension, drunk enough that I could smell the bourbon from 10 feet away. It was past 11 on a Wednesday night. Olivia was asleep upstairs, and I found him standing on my front porch, swaying slightly, his shirt untucked and his eyes red-rimmed. Drew! He spread his arms wide, nearly losing his balance. Drew, my old friend, my brother, my partner in crime. He laughed bitterly. Well, partner in something anyway. Go home, Malcolm, you're drunk. Drunk? He laughed again. I'm ruined is what I am. 39 years old and everything I built is gone. My career, my reputation, my relationship with my own father, who can barely look at me anymore. He jabbed a finger at my chest. And it's your fault. All of it. My fault. I leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. That's interesting logic. You didn't have to do this, his voice cracked. We could have worked something out. I would have ended things with Vanessa. I would have paid back the money. $340,000? In time. I would have figured something out. He wiped his face with his sleeve. We were friends, Drew. Real friends. 15 years. Doesn't that count for anything? I looked at this man I'd trusted, admired, built a business with. The man who'd been best man at my wedding and godfather to my daughter. The man who'd been sleeping with my wife since before I knew her name. You want to talk about what counts? I said quietly. 9 years ago, you saw a woman at a bar. A beautiful woman, ambitious, maybe a little desperate. And instead of pursuing her yourself, instead of being honest about your feelings, you decided to give her to me like a gift you could take back whenever you wanted. It wasn't like that. It was exactly like that. Every email I read made it clearer. You picked me because I was useful, because I was stable and hardworking and trusting, because I would build the life you wanted Vanessa to have while you got to keep the parts you actually cared about. I shook my head. That's not friendship. That's using someone. I loved her. Tears were running down his face now. I've always loved her. Don't you understand that? Then why didn't you marry her yourself? He was silent for a long moment. The only sounds were crickets and distant traffic. My father, he said finally. He had expectations. Vanessa was beautiful, smart, but she wasn't. She didn't have the right background, the right family, the right pedigree. He practically spat the word. He made it very clear that if I married her, I'd be cut off, disinherited, disowned. So you chose his money over her love. I was 24. I didn't know what else to do. You could have been honest. With her. With me. With yourself. I straightened up. But you didn't want honesty. You wanted to have everything without paying for any of it. Well, the bill came due, Malcolm, and it turns out the price was higher than you expected. He stood there for a long moment, swaying on my porch, the weight of everything he'd lost pressing down on him. Then he turned without another word and stumbled toward his car. Malcolm, I stopped him. Don't drive. Call a cab or sleep it off somewhere, but don't drive. He looked back at me with an expression I couldn't read. Gratitude, maybe, or surprise that I still cared enough to say something. Still looking out for me, he said. Even now. I'm looking out for whoever you might hit on the road. Take a cab. He nodded slowly, pulled out his phone, and sat down on my front steps to wait. I went inside and locked the door behind me, and I didn't look out the window to see if he left. Judge Raymond Whitfield's downfall began with a single newspaper article. Rachel Torres was an investigative reporter for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, known for toppling politicians and exposing corruption. When I contacted her, she was skeptical. Why come to me with this? Because you'll do it right, I said. I'm not giving you an interview. I'm giving you a direction to investigate. What you find is your story. And what do you get? Justice, she laughed. Nobody's that noble. I get to watch, I admitted. That's enough. The first article dropped 6 weeks after I'd confronted Vanessa. Allegations of favoritism rock Georgia Appellate Court. The Judicial Qualifications Commission opened an investigation within 48 hours. The old man fought. He called in every favor he'd accumulated over 30 years on the bench, pressured witnesses, threatened newspapers. But the documentation was thorough. I'd made sure of that. His resignation came on a Friday afternoon, announced via press release. Effective immediately for health reasons. No charges were filed, but his reputation, his legacy, was destroyed. 30 years of building power, erased in whispers and innuendo. I read the news alert on my phone and allowed myself a small smile. The divorce was finalized on a gray Tuesday in November. Vanessa signed the papers in her lawyer's office, not looking at me, not speaking. She got $50,000 and the car. I got everything else. Joint custody was granted with me as primary residential parent. The court noted Vanessa's pattern of deception as a factor in the decision. She was allowed supervised visitation until a family therapist cleared her for more. The prenatal paternity test had come back 2 weeks earlier. The baby was Malcolm's. Vanessa would have to navigate that alone. Malcolm, suspended, disgraced, financially ruined, was in no position to help anyone, including himself. After the papers were signed, Vanessa's lawyer excused himself, leaving us alone in the conference room. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. "For what it's worth." "It's not worth much." "I know." She finally looked at me. Her eyes were red-rimmed, hollow. "I never meant for it to happen this way." "You meant for it to happen exactly this way. You just didn't mean to get caught." She flinched like I'd slapped her. "That's not fair." "Fair." I gathered my papers. "You want to talk about fair? I spent 8 years being faithful to a woman who was sleeping with my best friend before we ever met. I funded your affair with my own money. I built a life that was a lie from the foundation up." I paused at the door. "Don't talk to me about fair." The firm reopened as Lawson Legal Partners, LLC, 3 months after Malcolm's disbarment became official. I bought out his share at a steep discount. He needed the money for legal fees and was in no position to negotiate. Patricia Holloway joined as senior partner, bringing her client base and her reputation. The merger doubled our capacity overnight. The major clients stayed, and some of them sent referrals. My reputation as the ethical partner had solidified into something valuable. The first day in the newly renovated offices, I stood in what had been Malcolm's corner suite, now Patricia's, and looked out at the Atlanta skyline. "Not bad," Patricia said, coming up beside me, "for a guy who got his heart ripped out 6 months ago." "It wasn't my heart they ripped out. It was my trust." "Same thing sometimes." She handed me a glass of champagne. "To new beginnings." I clinked my glass against hers. "To earned ones." Olivia adjusted to the new arrangement better than I'd expected. Kids are resilient that way. She missed her mother, but she also seemed to sense that something had been wrong in our house, something that was finally being set right. We developed new routines: ice cream after school on Fridays, breakfast for dinner on Tuesdays, bedtime stories that stretched longer than they should because neither of us wanted them to end. "Daddy?" she asked one night as I was tucking her in. "Is Mommy okay?" "Mommy is figuring things out," I said carefully. "She loves you very much." "I know." She pulled her stuffed rabbit closer. "But I like living with you." "I like it too, sweetheart." "Good," she yawned. "Daddy, promise you'll never leave?" I kissed her forehead. "I promise." Some promises are easier to keep than others. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I received a letter in the mail. Handwritten, no return address. I recognized Malcolm's handwriting immediately. Drew, I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I just wanted you to know that what you and I built together, the firm, the early years, that was real. I destroyed it. That's on me. I hope Olivia grows up to be half the person you are. Malcolm. I read it twice. Then I walked to the fireplace, struck a match, and watched it burn. Some bridges aren't meant to be rebuilt. Patricia and I started seeing each other about 8 months after everything fell apart. It wasn't planned. Just two people who spent a lot of time together, shared a lot of late nights, gradually realized there was something more than partnership between them. Our first real date was at a restaurant in Buckhead, far enough from the old haunts that we wouldn't run into ghosts. "This is weird," she said, halfway through her steak. "I keep waiting for you to pull out a contract." "No contracts, just dinner. With a woman who helped you systematically destroy your enemies. That's what made me fall for you." She laughed, a real laugh, surprised out of her. "You're darker than I thought, Drew Lawson. You bring it out in me." The last time I saw Malcolm was at a courthouse in Birmingham, 18 months after everything fell apart. I was there for a deposition. He was apparently doing document review for the firm that had taken him in. We passed each other in the hallway. He looked smaller somehow, diminished in a way that had nothing to do with physical size. His suit was off the rack, his shoes scuffed. The easy charm that had defined him was gone. "Drew," he stopped walking. "I heard the firm is doing well." "It is." "Good. That's good." He shifted awkwardly. "Olivia? She's okay?" "She's great, starting second grade soon." He nodded. Something flickered across his face. Regret, maybe, or envy. Tell her Uncle Malcolm says hello." "No." I said it without anger, without heat. Just a simple statement of fact. "She doesn't ask about you anymore." He flinched. "Drew. Goodbye, Malcolm." I walked away without looking back. I had a deposition to attend, a flight to catch, a daughter to get home to. Patricia and I got married on a Saturday in October, 2 years after we'd started dating. Small ceremony, close friends, Olivia as flower girl. The reception was at a vineyard outside Atlanta, under a tent strung with lights. "No regrets?" Patricia asked as we swayed to our first dance. "Not one." "Good." She leaned her head against my shoulder. "Because you're stuck with me now. I can think of worse fates." Olivia ran up to us, demanding to be included in the dance. I scooped her up with one arm, holding my wife with the other, and we swayed together under the lights. "I love our family," Olivia declared. "Me too, sweetheart." Patricia caught my eye and smiled. Vanessa moved to Savannah after her baby was born. She sent photos occasionally, a boy with Malcolm's eyes and her coloring. I deleted them without responding. Malcolm himself disappeared from Atlanta's legal scene entirely. Rumor had it he was doing contract work for a small firm in Alabama, making a fraction of what he'd once earned. His father retreated to the family estate and was rarely seen in public. The Whitfield dynasty, built over generations, crumbled in less than a year. On Olivia's 8th birthday, we threw a party in the backyard. 15 of her friends, a bounce house, more sugar than any responsible parent should allow. Patricia helped me manage the chaos. "You're good at this," I told her, watching her mediate a dispute over who got the last cupcake. "I'm good at everything." Olivia found me later, exhausted and happy, and climbed into my lap. "Best birthday ever," she mumbled. "Better than last year?" "Way better." She yawned. "Daddy? I love you." "I love you too, sweetheart. More than anything." She fell asleep in my arms. I kept one thing from the whole ordeal: a copy of that first email Malcolm sent Vanessa, 9 years before our world fell apart. "Drew's a good guy. He doesn't deserve to be hurt. At least not yet." I framed it and hung it in my home office, where I could see it every day. Not as a reminder of the betrayal. As a reminder that being a good guy doesn't mean being a blind one. That trust, once broken, doesn't have to stay that way. That you can build something new on the ruins of what was destroyed. Olivia asked me about it once. "What's that, Daddy?" "A lesson," I told her. "About knowing who deserves your trust." That sounds sad. It was. I pulled her close. but it had a happy ending. She seemed satisfied with that. I was too.